Hey guys, welcome to the Attractions Group podcast. It's going to be a great
Welcome.
episode. How's it going?
It's going great. How you doing?
You
Not
know,
not too bad
I'm
anyway.
I'm feeling good. I got a good day off today. Just hanging out, chilling a little bit. I think I'm going to maybe go watch Snow White tonight. The live action remake.
And maybe you'll need to go on and give your own review of how of that. There's a lot of very wide range of either it's one of those movies people either really love it or they really hate it. And there's
Yes.
really no it's a 5. It's a 1 or it's a 10. There's just no in between.
Yeah, I will say I'm on the 10 track. If I go see it tonight, it'll be my second time seeing it. So I think it
Oh,
is
okay.
wonderful. It is great. And at very least, if you're not going to go see it, you got to give the soundtrack a listen. It is killer. Killer.
I don't
So
know.
good.
I might do a pass on both. I don't know. I like Disney stuff, but uh anyway.
Yeah.
So no, and so of course, as we enter the month of April, we always got to, at least in Ohio, had to shout out to what the heck the weather's doing. And
Mm.
goodness, here in Ohio, I don't know where you're listening from. If you're in California, Florida, actually we have a pretty good concentration of people in Florida that listen. But in Ohio, we are in the middle of a pair of tornado makers. And we had a bunch of lightning, thunder, tornado, 3 tornadoes close by here a couple days ago, and we're going to get a repeat of it, I think, tomorrow night and over the weekend. So we went
Wow.
straight from not knowing if it was going to rain or snow to, okay, is it going to storm tomorrow? Or is it going to be sunny out? So
Yeah, it
it
reminds
lots of
me
fun in Ohio.
not to make light of such a like legitimate problem, but my favorite tornado is the one
Your favorite
after
tornado?
after the carnival scene in Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. You go into that room with the tornado, where there's like a trombone in there. Mickey and Minnie are getting whipped
Nice.
around by the winds. Yeah, it's pretty great. I assume the ones in Ohio are not quite so fun. So
No, and actually they weren't real. They weren't as bad. I mean, EF zeros. I think we had a couple of those, but still, any tornado is a bad tornado, and so yeah, we're in between, and we'll see what's going to happen the rest of the week.
sure. Well, it's been a pretty crazy week for news. So let's get right into the
It
the pick
has.
six for this week.
All right. Well, and this one came out kind of a surprise. I don't have my ear to the ground so much when it comes to parks north of the border, but I guess here in Canada's Wonderland, they had on their website or on their social media feed this morning that after years of speculation, that apparently in 2031 they'll be relocating their property of Wonderland to Wonder Island, a custom-built island in downtown Toronto. And now, I mean, I guess there have been parks that have moved locations before. Uh, this certainly would now. If I would think that if they're going to be going somewhere, it wouldn't be downtown. It might be moving more towards the suburbs. But hey, uh, Disneyland in Anaheim does pretty well. So who say they couldn't do it there?
Yeah, I'm sure they'll build themselves a big enough island that they can have some room to grow. But nonetheless, I think this is a really exciting update for Canada's Wonderland and to see the new Six Flags chain getting stuff done like this. The next big shocker we saw this weekend was Universal. We've talked about all their new parks that they've been, just dropping into the world like flies, but they've announced another new resort, the Universal Moon Resort. This, I mean, blows everything else they've done out of the water. They're calling it an out of this world attraction because it's literally out of this world. This is unlike anything I have ever seen, anything the attractions industry has ever seen. We're gonna have to charter some I don't know, some SpaceX flights, maybe some Blue Origin to get up there, or maybe they'll just build a new bus lane. That's what they did
A
in
new
Orlando.
bus.
So.
get another get another bus lane going down Universal Boulevard.
Yeah, we'll get a monorail built. Maybe they'll take from Disney a
Yeah.
little.
Well, and hopefully people listen long enough to realize that we didn't make these stories up. These are actually on the respective parks' social media feeds. Now, I got to admit, the one that Kings Island put out almost got me. And if you're unfamiliar with it, they said what their social media feed goes. What if we told you the most exclusive view of the park has been hiding in plain sight? Okay, it doesn't start off like an April Fool's joke. It says, if you ever felt a pull of curiosity towards the unseen room crowning the Eiffel Tower's highest observation deck. Now, most people I've often heard rumors of people, what is up there? Is there a boardroom up there? What's up there? Anytime I've read the elevator up there, of course you can see up in there, there's nothing but mechanical things up there. But I always wondered why there's an air conditioning unit on the outside. And so when I'm reading this, I'm thinking, now wait a minute. I didn't think there was a room up there. And so when they start talking about that, and then the idiot me is, okay, I didn't see any construction people going in and out of their construction because I live pretty close to there. There's no windows. How's this? And then I look down the bottom and it says, yeah, just food for thought for April 1st. I'm like, oh God, of course. But the stuff they put on social media looked pretty decent. Did you happen to come across any today?
I think the Universal. I saw those three. I don't think I saw many others. But you told me actually a few minutes ago about
Oh,
a pretty great prank by the city of Orlando.
I happen to come up on this now. We may post the link on this, but it's to the Orlando Sentinel. And if you don't have a subscription to that, you may not be able to see it. But apparently, the city of Orlando placed on behalf of the airport on 12 billboards. Now, this is a story. I'm not down there, so obviously I haven't seen. I don't think you said you've seen the billboards as well. But 12 billboards throughout Orlando, basically saying that if you've ever flown into Orlando and gotten into I think they call it APM, the people, the trams going from the gates to the terminal. Essentially, what they have on these billboards is a phone number to call for information about the airport. You call the number, which I did, and basically what it is this Mayor Buddy Dyer's spiel that he gives when you're riding on the train from the gates to the terminal. It's probably easily the biggest. Yeah, you're going to get some big information about something exciting in Orlando. It's like, oh, okay, so you're trolling people from out of town that aren't traveling to Orlando. Got it.
Hey, it's
But
Orlando
I
Mayor
like
Buddy
that. They
Dye.
go through the time they go through the time and trouble to do that, and it's one of the nice things about Orlando because you have Fun Spot, you have SeaWorld, you have uh, Aquatica, you have Volcano Bay, you have Universal, Disney, and the city is. I think the city just kind of recognizes that the city's not there if not for these outstanding destinations, and it all kind of plays into that. And so yeah, it does work as a troll of you know you're not here. And if you were here, you'd hear this on the train. And you know that you're staying in Orlando. So it's very effective. Is very effective.
Yes, absolutely. That's good. So this week we're actually going to push the pick six back onto the other side of our interview.
Yes,
So stay
the
tuned.
serious pick six.
Yes, the real pick six. Although if anyone, you gotta agree with me here, David. If anyone were going to be building a theme park on the moon, it would probably be
It
Universal.
would be universal. Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably right. So maybe that will be in the real pick six too. I guess you'll have to wait and see at the end of the episode.
I'm sure they're on pins and needles. All right, Clete, so we have a guest this afternoon. Do you know if I were to mention the words life coach? Do you know what that means?
Vaguely, but it's more of a familiarity than a knowledge.
Well, we hope to get a little bit more information on that and a little more insight. Our guest today is named Loree Bischoff. She is a seasoned life coach of 17 years, helping clients elevate mental, emotional, and physical well being. She has a holistic approach that blends personal development with health coaching. She's author of Common Sense Happiness. And I believe there's another book that she has written on. I don't want to say any short, but on recipes, I believe for healthy eating. But she's also wrote teen life coaching courses, and um, she's also helped just countless clients. I don't believe she has any exposure to the attractions industry, so that's why we're here today. And she lives and she says joyfully in Cody, Wyoming, which I've seen pictures on social media. It looks absolutely stunningly amazing. But she has been with her husband of 40 years and their Australian cattle dog, Nikki. Uh, Sounds like a full deck out there. I'm sure there's probably some horses too. But with that, welcome Loree Bischoff to the podcast. Loree, how are you
Hi.
doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, guys. This will be fun.
I hope I did your intro justice.
It was perfect. That's pretty much it. I live in Cody, Wyoming, with my husband of over 40 years and our dog Nikki. It's a small crew here, but I
Now,
it's joyful.
now, how many horses are included in there?
Well, we don't have horses anymore. We did have several horses
Okay.
for a while, and it's just one of those things where it's a high maintenance thing. And when you move around as much as we do and travel as much as my husband does, it was getting to be a little bit tough to maintain livestock. So we decided, at least for the time being, we just better stick with one dog. And that is a lot easier to manage with the lifestyle that we have.
Well, and I have seen the pictures that you post occasionally on social media, just the background. It's like a troll for those who has nothing but just flat land to stare at. But it looks beautiful out there, beautiful setting, and it's. I mean, that whole area out there. I have not been to Wyoming, but been to Colorado, and I imagine that the views are similar but not the same. So
Yeah, there's a lot of similarity, but sometime bring your family out and take them to Yellowstone Park. It's beautiful, and with the Yellowstone series that's been out the last few years, it's I think it's getting a lot more attention, renewed attention. Maybe it's a big tourist destination, so it's worth
it
the
is,
trip.
but wow, there's just not a lot of flight options going in and out. That's a
Nope,
it's
you got to plan ahead. It's not easy to
yes, you
get
do,
here.
and I don't like driving that far. So,
Ah.
Lori, give us a little bit of a background, a little bit of your personal background, in what got you interested in the whole idea of life coaching.
Well, it's something, as you mentioned, that I've been doing for 17 years now. But prior to that, I guess the short story is, I was predominantly a stay at home mom when our kids were home and we were raising children. Once we got to the point where we were empty nesters and I had time to sort of reinvent myself and decide what's next for me, I had an idea, and that was to create a workshop, a kind of a weekend event, if you will, with my sister about helping moms create a more balanced and fulfilling life. So I had this is before I knew what life coaching was, but I had this inspiration to create this event, which we called Motherhood Redefined. So it was like a big weekend sort of motivational event with speakers and workshops and the whole nine yards. And one of the speakers that we had hired, that my sister had hired, was a life coach. And I realized when I met her and found out more about it, because I had no idea that there was such a thing before this, and this was in like 2007, and I was like, well, that is very intriguing to me, because it's really what the entire weekend that I just planned was all about. It was all about life coaching in a particular niche, which happened to be mothers at that time. So that set me on a path to becoming a certified coach, because I knew that that's really what was calling to me. I had been kind of learning how to coach myself for my entire adult life and studying health and personal development the whole time that I was being a stay at home mom. So I was kind of already, in my own way, doing that for myself. And then I got to the point where, okay, what's been working for me so well? Why can't I find a way to help other people? So that's really the short story of it. That's what led me to getting multiple certifications and starting a practice.
Is a lot of it just about people trying to find balance in what they're doing and how they do it? Is
Mhm.
that the? No, I'm kind of a dumb person from Cincinnati. So as far as the whole life coaching aspect of it, if I question, I can imagine that Cleet and I were talking off air a little bit ago, that there's probably people sitting one of a couple different buckets. Number one, they have no idea what life coaching is, or number
Mhm.
two, they do, but they don't think they need it. So
Mm.
is that probably where they? So what's the I guess the
Yeah.
closer to the ground explanation?
Yeah, that's probably a pretty good assumption. Either people don't really quite know what it is. It's a little ambiguous. They don't think they need it, or they think that. it's too what's the word? It's it's something that, because it's not a regulated field like therapy,
Hmm.
um, you get a lot of bad actors, which you do in pretty well any profession, any business.
Yeah.
But but it makes it easier for people to kind of shrug it off as something that's really
Hmm.
not going to be all that effective. So, so that's fair. But the thing is, even the best coaches have coaches. Uh, it's because we all have blind spots. We all get tunnel vision on certain things, and we all find moments in our lives where we can feel a little bit stuck, or just can't seem to find your way
Hmm.
past a challenge, right? And that's when coaching can be so effective for a person. When you're in therapy, therapy is there's a lot of great therapists, and as in coaching there's a lot of great coaches, but again, there are a lot of people in both of those practices that are not that great. So you really have to find the person that's the right fit for you. Now, if you're thinking about therapy, just to give you a bit of um, landscape on the difference. So therapy is going to mainly be focused on asking the client or the patient, okay, so what are your problems? What's bothering you? Tell me how you feel about that. Um, and it's really about more about processing a lot of emotions, maybe some psychological issues. The focus is more explores the healing of past things, and
Hmm.
coaching is more about a focus on the present and the future to help clients achieve goals or to move forward. So it's a very active, forward moving process. We don't spend lots of time going in circles about feelings, although feelings come into play, but
Hmm.
that they are different focuses, fundamentally. um, Therapy is usually more introspective, in the sense that, again, there may be trauma that a person is dealing with, or mental health issues. Emotional healing and life coaching is going to be more, like I said, action oriented. We're going to emphasize personal growth and mindset shifts, what I like to call emotional fitness, and strategy. So, okay, now we understand what's going on with you, but what do we do about it other than talk about it? So,
Okay.
it's just, there's just a little bit of, there is some overlap, but there is a fundamental shift, in focus between the two practices. And the other thing is, coaches are generally, we're working with people that are generally mentally healthy. They're ready to move forward, whereas therapy is
Hmm.
going to be more focused on, or can be focused on, people that are maybe they need help even just reaching like a baseline of stability
Hmm.
or functioning. Okay, so hopefully that helps explain the difference. I might ask a client, what is it? Why are you here? What does you want to
Hmm.
work on? What is stopping you? Would you like to feel better? How do you want to feel? How do you think we can make that happen? What do you think you need to do? What's at stake for you? And then what are action steps you think we can take? And we devise an action plan together that the client feels like, okay, I
Hmm.
can do that. And so we're kind of like co-pilots with the client.
All right, and bringing this to the attractions industry, bringing it down to that level, the attractions industry, and this is not my term. This is what has been told to me by a number of different people. Is that if you can follow this, it's a very incestuous industry. Whereas someone may get their start at this organization, but they don't go out of the organization. They go over, I'm sorry, out of the industry. They go over to this organization. There's people I know, they started maybe a Cedar Fair park, then they went to a Six Flags park, then they went to Universal, then they went to Disney.
Oh.
And a lot of the people, and they never leave the industry. There's some that come from the outside, but most of the
Mhm.
people, they started it years ago. Number of people I know that work at Disney, they have careers that span 30 plus years, and
Hmm.
they've been with just Disney, or they started across the street, or so when they start. No one starts with the executive job. I've talked to people before that I had a intern that worked at the was in the college program, and upon graduation, she wanted to figure out how she can get into a corporate position within Disney. Like, you might have to park cars for a year to get to that point. You're going to arrive right out of the gate. And the truth of the matter is that when you start into an organization, like we'll just use Disney example, because I know somebody who started out literally, they park cars at Epcot. Well, 25 years later, they're the president of Magic Kingdom. But
Wow.
there's a lot of grunt work in between. Those young professionals, they take the weekend hours. There are no holidays at the park level. Is that right, Cleet?
That's right. We were open 365 days a year.
Christmas
Yeah.
Day, you're working. New Year's Day, New Year's Eve, you're working. And so
Mm.
usually by the time they reach that not pinnacle in their career, but by the time they get to where they really start making their strides in their career, their life can already be way out of balance because they've said yes to just about everything and trying to find a
Sure.
place to say no. That's probably where they stumble. Maybe make up a hypothetical situation, but how can personal coaching in those scenarios help people maintain their well-being, health wise, balance
Mm.
wise?
Hmm.
Am I going down the right path?
Sure. Absolutely. Um, yeah, that's interesting. And it's not. I mean, there are some other professions that have a similar,
Mm-hmm.
have similar circumstances where there's a lot required of someone. Um, I know when I'm working with a client, one of the things that I believe is fundamental is developing the proper mindset. That's laying that the mindset that you have is laying the foundation for your emotional fitness, which is going to be it's kind of like being physically fit. So whatever it is that you're trying to achieve physically, there's something required of you that you must do to be in the
Mm-hmm.
condition to achieve what it is you're trying to achieve, right? And your mind isn't any different. So, what happens a lot of times after a period of time goes by, like you said, maybe somebody's been in the business for perhaps years or even decades, and they're just now like getting a little beleaguered, shall we say, or losing sight
Mm-hmm.
of things. So I think for me anyway, I believe good coaches remind people that number one, these are the choices that you made, knowing what the job is, right? So it's easy to just get caught in a current of whatever is pulling at you at the moment or at this phase of life. So bringing people back to understanding and remembering that these were the choices that they made. Nobody's making you do this. You don't have to do it anymore if you don't want to, right? But these are the things that you decided you were going to commit to. So let's explore why. Why did you make these commitments and take on this responsibility in this role in the first place? And has your why changed? Have you lost sight of it? If your values have changed and your goals have changed, then it's going to be, and they're not in alignment anymore with your original purpose for wanting to do what you're doing, then you're going to have this conflict, right? So you have to resolve the why and your purpose first of all. And if it hasn't changed, okay, then we need to talk about renewing your perspective on things, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I would be guiding professionals or clients to see the challenges that they're in as growth opportunities. So that's going to reduce some of the emotional exhaustion, perhaps, and that they're experiencing, and it's going to build more mental toughness, and help bring up more solution focused thinking rather than just this is a grind and it's grinding me down. So one of the things that I like to do for people, because you have to feel mentally healthy in order to figure out, are you staying? Are you going? If you're staying, then how am I going to stay and be in a position where I can still feel good and enthusiastic and not worn down, by the demands? So one of the things that I like to do, again, this is all mindset stuff, but that's where you have to start, is reframing whatever the thing is that has got them, in a state of frustration or stress, is to reframe what you've determined to be the problem, and we instead begin to think about that as a project. So, for example, when you have a problem on your plate, whether it's short term or long term, what kind of feelings and emotions does that usually evoke from a person when they feel like they just have a problem? What, maybe, out of balance, no boundaries, working too much, the job is too stressful, whatever, I can't get to the next level. Whatever the problem is, you've determined it as such, which means you are going to then generate the corresponding emotions to the problem. And usually, when people have problems, those emotions are going to be stress, anxiety, frustration, right? They're not good feelings. They're not good emotions. Cortisol is going to go up. Maybe your, heart rate. So you create this cascade of issues, none of which are good for you. But if you reframe whatever it is you're wrestling with, and think of it as a project, same situation, but now you've determined that it's something else. You've determined that it's a project. Now, when a person goes to bed thinking, I've got a project to work on tomorrow, that's a lot more exciting to wake up to than a problem, right? When you have a project, that's going to evoke, right, a more of a creative attitude. You're going to feel like, oh, this is interesting. I've got this project and I've got these things I'm going to figure out, and I'm going to reshape this, or I'm going to do this differently or that. It just brings up a whole different, set of thoughts, which generate a whole different set of emotions. So a problem is going to evoke stress and pressure, and that's very constricting for a person. It's not, it's the opposite of expansive, which is what a project makes you feel, because creative things make you feel, those are good feelings. Those make me feel inspired. That makes me feel expansive. Now I'm in a whole different mindset to approach whatever it is I need to approach, the next day or whatever's in front of me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's just an example of a powerful mindset shift, and we have to work on that. We come up with different maybe mantras or affirmations, and it's like you're training your mind to think in a different way about things so that you have more mental resources available to you. Otherwise, when you're shutting down, you're stressed, you're constricted, you have less available because you're feeling drained, you're not feeling fueled. And those are things that you can do, from within. You don't need something outside of you to do that. Setting boundaries is another thing. So obviously, um, having some sort of boundaries, whenever possible, around work hours. But and I know sometimes, depending on the job and the responsibilities, they might not have many, but as many as you can reasonably set, and maintain. We figure out what those are and what is manageable for you, and trying to avoid overcommitting. So don't commit if you don't have to something that's beyond what is expected. And then the other thing is, that we can help, is setting up, I hate to use this phrase because I think it's so overused, but self-care routines. I think sometimes people take that way too far, the self-care routines, but whatever. But really helping clients identify some sort of daily, they don't have to be big or time consuming, but daily self-care practices. Whether it's, maybe you get out before you have to start your workday, and just have a 10-minute walk with some fresh air and clear your head. And maybe you have a gratitude practice that you can think about or say at the same time you're doing that. Having some digital detox time, so you're not constantly looking at devices. When you're looking at devices, and most people, I'm guilty of it myself, although I try to keep it under control. The first thing you do when you get up in the morning, right, is you pick up your device and you look at it, and right away that puts you in a reactive mode. Now, when you're in a reactive mode, you're not being proactive. You can't do both at the same time. So if you are busy looking at everything on here, the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning, you've already set yourself up in a disempowering mindset.
Mhm.
So just that's one thing that's so easy is when you first wake up to take control of those first few minutes, whether it's if you only have 10 minutes or maybe you can wake up a little earlier and take, 30 minutes or 60 minutes, whatever it is. But I feel it's very beneficial to people who find a way to have bookends to their day. So I don't care how busy you are, even if you can find 5 minutes. If you have 5 minutes to scroll social media and look at your device, you have 5 minutes of bookend time. So
Mhm.
in the morning, you start out with something that feeds you, inspirationally, that makes you feel like, okay, I'm ready to take on my project and get yourself in that state. Because this is what we're doing is we're talking about finding ways, and it's different for each client, but finding ways to put yourself in a positive state, in a state that you feel like I'm ready to take on the world, right? Otherwise, you're starting out in the hole. So you start your day that way with a few simple self-care practices, and then you do the same thing at the end of the day. The last thing you should be doing at night when you turn off the light and you stop looking at all your stuff is to be taking a few minutes to put yourself in state as you drift off to
Mhm.
sleep. Some sort of some sort of practice, whether it's a breathing practice, a journaling practice, a gratitude prayers, if you're spiritual, whatever it is. But those things, they may sound simple, but they're extremely powerful. Usually, the things that are really helpful for us are free. They're not time consuming and they're not costly. It's amazing how, it's amazing how life has set itself up for us in that sense. So those are a few things that I think that I know go a long way toward helping people in stressful careers, especially even just their stressful home life, whatever it is. But those things are across the board are really beneficial.
So you talk a little bit here about how, this mindset shifting can really help to reduce burnout or anything of that variety. What can
Mm.
coaching do for the professional maybe who's in a position of just uncertainty? They're in a place of, wow, am I, I've dedicated myself to this, but maybe I'm not sure that I should have anymore. Or
Mm.
maybe it's just, hey, I love what I do now, but it's time to get a little more specific. Do I want to
Mm.
try to go full at it and get into marketing, or do I want to try to go full at it and get into finance? Whatever it may be.
Mhm.
When you're trying to just find an answer that oftentimes I think is in yourself, how can
Yeah.
coaching help dig those out?
Yeah, that's a great question, Cleet. And that's one of the things that a good coach really has a handle on, because a lot of coaching really comes from a fundamental premise of assuming that people do have the answers within themselves. And it is sometimes a little bit of an emotional sort of archaeological dig to get them out. And so a good coach asks really good quality questions. And the right questions are what helps a person sort of find their way through all of the talk and the uncertainty and the should I hear, what if that, because most people have a tendency, if they're asking themselves questions at all, which a lot of people aren't, they're just doing, but they're not contemplating and they're not asking themselves the right questions. They're asking questions that don't really have an answer. Like, God, why did this happen to me? Well, I mean, are you really expecting there to be a voice that comes down and says to you, well, this is exactly why this happened to you, son, because A, B, and C, right? That's not going to happen. So
It'd
it's
be
not a
nice if it
quality.
happened, actually.
It would be, right? It would be. Things would be so much better. but, but yeah, we could all reach that state of enlightenment so much faster.
Yeah.
But um, but So there are better ways to ask yourselves questions, and if that's something that is foreign to you, that's where a good coach comes in, because they can help you with that. We can ask some really good quality questions that help you find your way through all of the stuff. So a lot of times the uncertainty is a place. Some people thrive in uncertainty. So uncertainty is a very powerful human psychological need. So there's basically six of them. Uncertainty, we call that uncertainty slash variety, because the same thing, right? There's certainly, if you have uncertainty in your life, that means there's variety going on. And so there are some people that thrive in that state. For example, if you are someone that is an extreme sports junkie, then you are going to just thrive on uncertainty. Who knows what could happen? You are a risk taker, and that works well for some people. It inspires them. It makes them hungry, and fuels a drive to attack whatever this thing is. They don't know how it's going to turn out, right? But for a lot of people, that is not a place they want to be. Most people want to be in a place of certainty. I need to know exactly what's going on so that I feel like I've got some sense of control over things, right? That's one of the other six human needs. And so if you are a person that thrives in a sense of certainty, and then you hit a place in your career where all of a sudden you're either not sure what's going to happen. Maybe you're not sure if your position is going to be, if you're going to get the axe, if something's changing. You don't know if you're going to have a career, or like you said, Clete, maybe you're just like going, I don't know if this is right for me anymore. I think I might want to consider some other avenues. Fair enough. So that's what we explore. But I guess the things that we have to get to the heart of in coaching is, okay, what's the purpose? What's your value system? What do these things mean to you? So we have to really get down under all of the surfacey stuff, like, well, this role, the hours are different, I'd have these other responsibilities, and well, the pay is better, blah blah blah. Those are all things that, not that they're not important, but when you're having a phase, perhaps, or a circumstance that's causing you to question, should I stay or should I go, for whatever reason, we really need to get down and help you, the client, figure out, okay, what do you value most right now? What do you value in your personal life? And how do we align what it is you want to do moving forward in your career with those values, so that you're kind of synced up across these different areas of your life? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mhm. You didn't mention this by name earlier, but I want to talk about imposter syndrome for a second, because how can coaching help attractions professionals with this? Because honestly, the attractions industry writ large is probably the most creative industry out there, the most innovative, creative. If you've ever been to an expo, Clea, you came to us with this one year to the IAPA Expo. It is nothing but an entire gigantic convention center full of the most innovative, the most creative, the most aggressive, the smartest, any number of adjectives you want to put there. And I'm sure those people, they question themselves all the time. And it is for me going down there and thinking, okay, how am I going to compete with this? We think we got a great product or whatever, but how really? There's probably 10 people doing what you're doing already. So how do you differentiate yourself with that? But how would coaching help people, any professionals? It doesn't even have to be in the attractions industry, but since we're in the industry, we'll talk about that. But just build confidence to overcome that imposter syndrome, especially when presenting ideas or leading teams, for that matter.
Good question. Yeah, imposter syndrome is Man, that one's tough to it. I mean, because that happens to people no matter what you're doing. It's across the board, and I think we're so conditioned. We're so conditioned to want to seek approval from those around us, and that whether it's your friends and neighbors, or it's it's your peer group, or your people in your work circle, or your competitors. So it doesn't matter, it's across the board. But when you're conditioned to be seeking approval, wanting to make sure that you're either looked at favorably or even looked up at, it's it can be a lot of
Hmm.
stress and pressure for people. And one of the I think one of the main things, and I think it's even more important today than ever because there's so much that's the opposite, is being willing to really, really put your genuine self forward, because there's so much inauthenticity out there. There's
Hmm.
so many people. There are so many people, on social media and whatever, even at events, that are trying very hard to create a perception of themselves that they want you to believe is who they are. And I think we've gotten to a point in our society where people are starting to really see through a lot of that with people,
Hmm.
and it doesn't work so well anymore as maybe it did in the past, because we've been inundated with people that are not authentic, they're not genuine. There are many, and they're literally people that are
Hmm.
spewing fraudulent information constantly, and people have gotten kind of savvy to it. So I think that one of the first things I would say is, and that's one of the things a coach can help you with, is building up your confidence to just be yourself. Because when, you guys probably know, I know for myself, when I meet somebody or even see someone speaking on TV about something, or in a podcast, you feel the ones that you feel like, okay, that's just the real person. You just know it, you feel it.
Hmm.
Those are the people that you are drawn to, because there's a they're presenting a truthful self, and people are drawn to that. You want that. Everyone else, not so much. It's like, I don't know, maybe not. I don't really feel like I can trust or believe, or you know get get in line with that person, because I don't really feel like I know the real person. So the first thing I would say is getting comfortable, and if you need help with that, that's what great coaches do, being yourself and being honest and truthful, because people gravitate toward that, and we're a lot more savvy, I think, these days than we were
Hmm.
even 5 years ago. So that would be the most important thing. But so helping people strengthen their confidence, their sense of self awareness, again, their mindset, their communication skills, right? So key ways that we would do this is by, again, reframing limiting beliefs, by challenging what they probably have a lot of negative self talk going on. So we want to reinforce, like, past successes. Okay, tell me some times where you didn't feel like an imposter. How did you feel like you were presenting yourself? Did you feel like you were just you?
Hmm.
So we associate with some positive times, right? And then
Hmm.
what are those tools? What did you do? How can we bring those back into the situation that you're dealing with now? We help promote a growth mindset by helping them see that any mistakes that they may have made that are possibly causing them to feel like an imposter, those are learning, right? They're not proof of inadequacy. They're just proof that, like everybody else on the planet, you're learning, because no one is doing and executing everything perfectly all the time, 100% of the time, right? So helping them see a bigger, more well-rounded picture of what's going on and their expectations of themselves is really key. But I think the biggest thing is, I really think one of the biggest things, and there's obviously lots of ways that we would work on this, but
Mhm.
a person that is willing to be genuine is a person. Look at Joe Rogan. He's so genuine. You just know that that dude that you see on a podcast that are typically lasting 3 hours, and he has the biggest
Mhm.
audience, I think, in the world for podcasting. Well, what does that say about him? Why is he resonating so much with people? He seems like
Yeah.
that's what you see is what you get, right?
Mhm.
So get
So,
comfortable just being you.
yeah. Now, dumb question with the whole imposter syndrome, because I think there's a lot of people that also deal not just with that, but then on the other side of the spectrum, you have people that deal, and maybe they aren't even aware of it, are dealing with being overconfident. And is
Mm.
that that's probably a little bit harder for other people to pick out of themselves. I was in a meeting a number of years, I don't remember. I remember who it was with, but when it was, just before the pandemic, I'll just put it that way. Was presenting something. There's a organization, entertainment venue that was bleeding cash, and they had declining attendance, and they didn't know why. And I was brought in to do some consulting on it. Well, I presented some findings to their team and just some suggestions. And I knew that the person I was working with, he was a little bit very confident in himself, and given their balance sheet, he shouldn't have been. But and came in, and I was having a bit of imposter syndrome because their organization, no matter how good or bad they were doing, is a lot bigger than I was. And so it got down to, so what did your team find? What are the next steps? And he on the presentation, he just told me, well, they kind of laughed at it. I was like, laughed at? What do you mean they laughed at it? Well, they didn't think too highly of the presentation. And I just kind of sat back there, and the first thing in my mind goes, well, here's imposter syndrome, and having to deal with this. But the first words out of my mouth were, well, I'm not the ones with declining attendance and lost 7 figures last year, I guess.
Hmm. Yeah.
Stunned silence in the room, and I just looked at him and said, are we done? You got my contact information. We'll talk. So I now when you get the imposter syndrome and an overconfidence in the room, now that was a knee jerk reaction. I don't feel bad about it, but that was a knee jerk reaction. But to this day, I don't feel bad about it. But
Okay.
no, it
Good.
was so. Is that a situation where people that are overconfident? I mean, that can obviously be almost as self destructive as
Mhm.
imposter syndrome is. I guess it was like, gotta stop doing these terms that was a bunch of tongue twisters. I don't do well with them.
Right. Right. Well, imposter syndrome, we could say trying to be fake. It's or feeling like you're a fraud. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, but overconfidence, the thing about overconfidence is just making sure that because you're so overconfident, it could make it easy for you to have a blind spot, that you are not willing to concede that you may have missed something, or there may be something that someone else has to contribute that could actually, elevate the whole, pitch or the situation, whatever it is. And that's where we have to, so if I'm working with someone in a situation maybe that would present itself as maybe they're being a little overconfident, we would do a little role play. So, okay, what is it that you're presenting in this? To use a scenario that you just laid out, what are you presenting? And all right, how are you feeling about it? And if the feedback I'm getting is positive, but maybe so overconfident that I sense that there may not be room for them to be receptive to something beyond that, then we could role play and we could work that out. And basically, what the bottom line is, you're getting someone to be willing to be in a place of still being. You can still be confident, but you can also simultaneously be open, and you can be humble. So when you don't have any sense of or ability to really be humble, then you've moved from overconfidence into arrogance, right? And now it doesn't open up the, the floor, if you will, for collaboration. And usually,
Hmm.
anything that's great, anything that's amazing that's being produced typically isn't being produced by one sole mind. It's typically, maybe not
Yeah.
100% of the time, but it's typically going to be two minds or more, right? It's a collaborative journey. And so I think just tempering oneself with a little bit of being, humbleness, and being willing to be open, you're going to invite perhaps an even better result than what you're presenting. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think seems so cool about this, I will admit, when I'm a very guest forward, I'm always thinking about the guest experience in whatever
Mhm.
it is in the attractions world. And with coaching, the thing I keep thinking about is it must be that it's better for the guests to be being helped dealing with, we'll say, people, associates who are being coached, because by having the right mindset, by going into work with um, the attitude you're talking about, this is I'm working on a
Mhm.
project, not a problem. You're
Yeah.
viewing things in a way that's within your purpose, and you feel like things are moving in the right direction. Well, now when some brick gets thrown into the road and I need to help someone out here, it's not
Yeah.
annoying. It's not a hindrance to, oh, I'm all ruffled up now. No, it's just it's another thing, and it's what I'm here to do is to help them. So
Mhm.
I get to go do that now. This is great. I'm so
Yeah.
happy that I can be here to help.
Yes.
So I think this is, coaching seems to me to be especially relevant to people in the attractions or hospitality in general worlds, where you're dealing with the public,
Mhm.
which can be one of the greatest things
Hmm.
in the world. It really can. Working with the public can be the best part of your life. It can be
Yeah.
taxing though. That's not, no reason to hide that either.
It doesn't help
Sure.
the fact
Sure.
that the lights are always on too.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, but to your point, Cleet, really these days, what has really been trending over the last 10 years or so is that truly innovative and forward thinking, health conscious companies, they want the best version of their employees because they know that that's how they will get the best output. Stands to reason, right? So more and more companies have begun to create a coaching culture, because they recognize the value of having a life coach available for their employees. So they're literally hiring life coaches to be available for the people that work for them, because research in the business world shows that happiness raises nearly every business and educational outcome, like sales, productivity, accuracy on tasks, and a multitude of other health and quality of life improvements. It raises everything. When you have happy people, they're doing a better job. So we have, a lot of coaches that are experts in organizational things, personal development, and their primary focus is to enhance and transform business culture by working closely with the employees to achieve their own personal goals. So when a coach is helping an employee deal with their responsibilities and at the same time maintain this delicate work life balance, um, they are able to really be able to have a better home life, a better personal life, which translates to a better work life. I mean, obviously, think about it. If a person has, they've got their profession going on, and all that is going along really well, but then personally they hit some speed bumps. Maybe they have some serious health issues. Maybe there are serious relationship problems. Maybe there's a divorce pending. Maybe they've got kids in trouble. Whatever the thing is that's going on at home, if it's serious enough, naturally it's going to affect that person's work output, they're not going to be able to give their best, to be their best, and produce their best, because they are going to have a lot of their attention is going to be focused on dealing with their issues outside of work, right? So life coaches can really help people in their personal lives, which bleeds over into their professional lives. So it's a very motivating, factor for companies now to have a life coach available for their employees. I mean, we all know, right? Success within the business, especially this business, it starts with the
Mhm.
employees, with their happiness, with their success, with their motivation. So, if they're managing their home and their personal lives well, then they're generally going to be happier, more engaged, and more productive employees.
Absolutely. Loree, now you have also a number of things that you do as in addition to the life coaching. You are actually you've written 3 books. Two, well, to be fair, a book, an ebook, and and some curriculum. Why don't you go into a little bit and tell us about the books that you wrote? I believe one of the ones was Common Sense Happiness, which I'm going
Yeah,
to say was in the early part of the last decade when you wrote that. Is that correct? Maybe 2000.
sure. So, Common Sense Happiness, which is the subtitle is 5 Principles for People Who Want to Stop Whining, Bitching, and Suffering. So it's kind of it's a nice sort of entrance into personal development, taking responsibility for yourself if you want to start to make some positive changes in your life. And yeah,
Almost
I
like it could have been
put that
written
out.
yesterday.
So, so that one's been out for a while. I have an ebook on my website called The Food Print Plan, which is helping people develop a healthy eating lifestyle. And so there are some recipes to get started in there, but it's not a cookbook per se. It includes a lot of coaching methodologies in there to help you start to make the changes. Because honestly, if you're trying to get healthier and have a healthier diet, you have to first start with your mental diet. So if your mental diet isn't in the right place and you haven't made the shifts you need to make up here in your mind, then whatever you do as far as eating goes is not going to stick. You might be able to do it for a week or 2 or 3, maybe even a couple months. But if you haven't changed your mindset and the things you are feeding yourself in your, mentally, then you will resort back to old habits and patterns. So that's why it's full of ways to help people make those shifts at the same time as offering some alternatives for some eating ideas, some ideas for recipes, I should say. So that's what that is. That's an ebook on the website. And then the other thing you mentioned was the Teen Life Coaching course, or TLC course, and that's a course. I actually initially developed it with a colleague, and it is designed for high school age teenagers to give them an edge, to feel like they have a coach in their corner. I feel like, especially these days, teenagers, high schoolers, they could really use an extra hand. They're dealing
Mhm.
with a lot of things that prior generations did not have to deal with, and the schools have not provided anything in the curriculum that is meeting them where they're at right now. There's a big gap between what they're being taught and what they need in order to kind of thrive in this day and age and manage some of the stressors and anxieties that they're dealing with. So that course is designed for them to really understand the power of their mindset and give them an edge and help them feel like, okay, there's something here for me. It's all about them, and there's nothing else that you're going to be taught in a high school curriculum that's all about you, right? It's all about a bunch of other stuff that most of it you don't really care about. But this is all about the individual. So it's something that allows them to really get to know themselves and become empowered by things that they didn't realize were available to them.
And then you yourself, you run a podcast as well, right? And I hear it has just the best name. That's what I've heard.
So yes, this podcast is We're Talking Shift, and it is a fun name. We have a lot of fun with that. When I first started the podcast in 2018, my original co-host and I, we were stuck on the word shift. For obvious reasons, there's a lot of things you can play around with. Is it going to be? Is it going to be we're talking shift? Is it going to be like just talking shift? Is it going to be making shift happen? Is it going to be, the shift hit the fan? I mean, so we had a lot of fun with that, but we did land on we're talking shift as being probably the most appropriate, and really that's what it's all about. It's all about helping people make the shifts that they need to in whatever aspect of their life, that they're dealing with at any given time. So it could be mental health, emotional fitness. It could be just, health, physical health, exercise, food. It could be relationships, which I like to call relationships, because all of those things,
Stay,
make
stay on brand.
exactly. So I firmly believe it's why I'm a holistic life coach, because all of these things overlap. So if you really want to have a fulfilling life, and you really want to be able to create, the most meaning and purpose and healthy life in all of those aspects, then you want to be able to up level each area, because they all affect each other. So if you want to live up to your potential and create a life that you feel really good about, then this podcast is something that you will find, whatever area it is you're looking for, you'll find an episode that applies to you.
Lori, before we sign off on this, I do want to bring up something. Now, we didn't talk about this as a potential question, but I'm going to ask you anyway, so you have no time to think about it.
Oh.
So, you of course, you said you're married 40 years. You do have two children, right? Grown children. So, in their early years and their uh, adolescent, teenage years, we're talking about theme parks here. We're not talking about shift. We're not talking about the other S word there. But no, as they were growing up, do you have a particular favorite vacation that you took your kids to at a theme park, be it Disney, Universal, or a Six Flags park?
That's a good question. Okay, I can handle that. Yeah, the pop questions,
I
because
got you
I'm
questions.
someone that thrives on certainty. Oh no, what's this? I'm uncertain. But yeah, so I would have to say, okay, we went to Hawaii, and that was a fabulous trip. But twice I think we took them to Hawaii. But I will say there was a period of time when at this time we lived in Atlanta, and my husband's business took us to Orlando frequently. Uh, he was in a business where they were doing a lot of production at MGM Studios. I think it was MGM. So we had several periods of time where we could take the kids and go with, and basically we just lived at the yacht club for 2 weeks or something, while or a week or 10 days or 2 weeks, whatever it was. But there were a couple chunks of time where we got to go and just be there and sort of sink into that sort of fun vibe of going to the parks, and yes, going to Disney World and Epcot and all of this stuff. And because of the circumstances surrounding it, why we were there, kids got to go hang out sometimes with dad while he was working. So it was just all of it all together it's really created the best memories for us, and great pictures and great memories. So I have to say that one's going to have to be the winner.
Now, speaking of the yacht club, did they have Cape May back then? Was it the restaurant that I think the restaurant's there? It's on in the beach club. Cleve, can you help me on that one?
Yeah, it's right there. It's all in the boardwalk. It's right next to it.
Right.
What was
Cape
it
May
called?
is Cape May. It's a restaurant.
I can't remember. Maybe.
I can't.
So
Well, they had
this
up until pandemic, they had an all-you-can-eat seafood buffet,
ah
which
chances
I
are we
don't
were
think it's
there
all you can eat
then.
anymore. But
But because we did eat at the obviously we're eating out a lot, but yeah, with a teenage boy, all you can eat buffets are a good deal. Our son especially could really put a damp in the a dent in the seafood. So yeah, we probably did. The name just I forget the names, but we did eat, on site frequently. They had a couple of good restaurants right in that hotel, and then of course, yes, all the way around. I think was there a sister hotel called the Swan that had,
Mhm.
if I remember right, and they had a fabulous sushi bar there. We put pretty healthy dent in the sushi too, so we had a lot of fun. And yes, I miss it. Someday I hope to bring our grandson back there so that he can experience the same thing that our kids got to.
Very cool. Loree, it's been great having you on. How can people get in touch with you if they want to? Talking about your books, where can they get that? I can see the keen eye will see your book in the background, the Common Sense
Ah,
Happiness.
yep.
But we'll post pictures of those and the links on the website. But how can people reach you?
Yeah, that's probably the best way is just the website, loreebischoff.com. Everything is on there, links to all the social media, links to the teen life coaching course, my books. Everything is in one spot there to make it easy so we don't have to rattle off a million different places. Just loreebischoff.com and everything is there. And it's been great, guys. I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much for having me.
It's been a lot of fun. I'd love to have you back on sometime.
For sure. Let's do it.
All right. All right.
Thanks so
Thanks for
much.
coming on, Loree.
All right. What a great interview. What a great time to learn about life coaching. And if you think that might be right for you, make sure to go down to those links in the description. You can see a full bank of knowledge on
Mhm.
Loree's website. Everything you need will be there, from the books to how to get in touch with her, social media, all right there. That's in the
Absolutely.
description of this video.
Yes. All right. Shall we do some pick six now?
Let's do some pick
The real
six.
list.
The real
All right.
list. So Six Flags Over Georgia has opened up a new attraction. And how exciting. I love new attractions. I'm sure you do too. Georgia Gold Rusher is an intimate ultra surf. We've seen, I believe, I'm sure I'm likely to get this wrong now that I'm trying to say a fact, but I think this is the second one we've seen in the US. The Mall of America has one at Nickelodeon Universe, and it's wonderful and themed like Avatar, and it's a fun ride. So basically, you're on like this skateboard, and there's two gondolas around which you're sitting in a circle facing out, and those gondolas spin kind of on this skateboard ride vehicle, and it's going to take you up and down in a U. Got a cool LSM launch, which actually it gets pretty powerful as far as the launch goes. So cool ride for Six Flags Over Georgia to add into their obviously already impressive lineup.
All right. Pick six, number two. Legoland, Florida, and California are both made a big announcement this week. Just reading through the website for the Florida location. Get ready, thrill seekers, for a first of its kind roller coaster is launching. Keyword here, launching, I assume, and I believe it's the same as what we have for the first sentence on the California. So apparently, there's going to be a launching roller coaster taking off in 2026, I believe. I don't see anything here on the story of it, but I thought that I had seen before that these are to be indoor roller coasters. Did you hear anything about that?
Yeah, I heard the phrase indoor tossed around with these for
Okay,
sure.
so in both are it's a record-breaking attraction to be the biggest investment in Legoland Florida's history, and expect experience that combines the creative world of Lego building with an exhilarating ride and storyline that only Legoland parks can deliver for families. It sounds like to have very large investments for both their properties, or at least I'm sorry, California and Florida for 2026. I mean, the 2025 season hasn't even got started, and already we're starting to ramp up excitement for 2026.
That's right. I
So
guess that's just the atmosphere now, though. If you're Merlin, right, and you're rocking with these Legoland parks in the US, you're competing with Parques Reunidos in Europe all the time, and then you see that in America the Parques Reunidos is now Palace, and they're gonna have all this new and now they're sold to Hershend, and who knows what that could be. We better get some excitement building in America. Let's get this announced maybe a little quicker than we were planning on it, or something like that. I could totally see being the behind the scenes on these. But I'm super excited to hear Legoland is getting some love for both parks. We haven't seen a new coaster in almost 15 years. Good to see that trend being broke. Pick six number 3, we've got Titan Track. Love Titan Track. It's going in everywhere during this off season, and we're starting to see some of these rides that have received it open back up. So Stampede, Wodan Timber Coaster, Kingdom Coaster, which you might be thinking, why does Kingdom Coaster need Titan Track? I don't know. But even beyond that, we're seeing the Boss, Boulder Dash, Rampage at Alabama Adventure, all of these getting some Titan Track. I've like Rampage, I heard a little while ago was going to receive a full Titan Track treat. Everything was going to get redone, and it was going to be with Titan Track. Well, that's not what has happened, but nonetheless, it's going to be put in those high stress areas where retracking needs to be done a lot, and just by the very nature of it, that's going to be some of the rougher areas that would have needed it as far as experiencing the ride too. So it's a win-win for maintenance and for the ride. And if you've ridden like White Lightning down here about from where I sit right now, about 10 miles that way, it's great. And those areas with that track, that white steel track, seamless transition and definitely a little smoother. And GCI has said they're excited about it because they're able to do some things with the track that they couldn't do with wood track just by the nature of the material. So thumbs up all around. That was long-winded, but Boulder Dash, come on, that needs it. That's the too long didn't read version.
All right, pick six, number 4. It's not all good news, but California Six Flags Magic Mountain is officially retiring the Superman Escape from Krypton. Now, and looking at their article from the Orange County Register in California, the Superman roller coaster is once the tallest and fastest in the world, and in some of their journalistic creativity here, has been exposed to a lethal dose of kryptonite and will never fly again. I like that.
Oh no!
But
Not the
no,
kryptonite.
it's yes, and unfortunately, another roller coaster is coming down now. Apparently, the roller coaster that I believe is intertwined with it, Lex Luthor Drop of Doom, attached to the coaster, will remain in operation. Now, that something about that, I'm sorry, just doesn't seem right. That Lex Luthor got one all over on Superman.
We can't let the bad guys win. What are we doing? What are we doing, Six Flags?
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. I didn't think about that until just now. Something's not right about that. They have to be
No.
intertwined, and Superman's the one to fall.
Wow.
Yeah, who knew?
Tragic. So when Falcon's Flight at Six Flags Qiddiya was announced, it was going to be the tallest coaster in the world. And it still is going to be the tallest coaster in the world when it opens. But back then, you could go like, under Falcon's Flight, under this, you'd have like, okay, then it's King Ka, then it's Top Thrill Dragster, then it's probably Superman Escape from Krypton, and then like, Red Force, and then Top Thrill Dragster is kind of alive, but it's a different ride now. King Ka's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Superman Escape from Krypton's gone. Tower of Terror 2, which closed November 3rd, 2019, is gone. I think if I'm Falcon's Flight, I'm feeling pretty good about my dominance of the height record. So pretty interesting. I guess, it's sad to see these guys go, though, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Six Flags making moves. Let's talk about them a little more. Great Adventure on the East Coast, their East Coast Alpha Park, I would say, is opening up a new ride. And Media Day has happened for this new Vekoma Super Boomerang themed to the Flash. Only like the third coaster to ever be themed to the Flash, which seems a little, like an awesome theme for a ride because you're like running around, so very exciting. And I've heard some rave reviews from if you watch the El Toro Ryan or Coaster Studios, media day rides. They seems to be a great ride with some good pops of airtime in reverse, backwards airtime, and Nuvacoma is just continuing to impress, and we saw him do it in Europe before we saw him bring it over here to the US, but it's here now in full swing, and I am very glad it is.
Now if you look back at our past episodes, looking back, one of the first ones we did, Universal is making all the news. Then the next week, it was Cedar Fair. I'm sorry, no, not Cedar Fair Parks yet. I forget one of the next ones was. Maybe Cedar Fair Parks were making a splash on that one, and then it was Hershey making the purchase. This week, it's all Six Flags. So I wonder, each week has kind of had their own. Each of the park chains have had their own moment in the sun. Yeah, I think we have 3 Six Flags topics on this pick six today, and I think
Yeah,
one episode we were pretty much all Universal.
yeah,
Interesting. Who's going to
yeah,
make the
sure
news
is.
next week?
Wow. Maybe they'll start announcing things based on wanting to get on the pick six.
So yeah, exactly. I'm sure that they're just looking at pins
Yeah,
and needles
they're
for
in
the
the
opening on that.
boardrooms like we need to get on the pick six for
Yes.
this week.
Well, pick six, number six, and this is probably something we could do a whole episode on, and maybe someday we get a cancellation coming up at the last minute. We can do a dive on this because this week actually does mark an anniversary of sorts in not just the United States but the world. Really, is around the middle to last part of March in 2020. Earth changed, and there's the lasting effects from COVID. You can make a argument that there's a way things operated before, and there's a way things operate now. And we put it on social media a couple times, and I put it out too late last night, so there wasn't a lot of time to get some feedback on it. But just to find out from people's perspective, working in the industry, whether you're someone who goes to work every day in a park or an attraction, or if you're just someone who goes to the park to enjoy the attractions, how have things changed? What sort of things do you notice that are being different from before to after? Cleet, when did you start working at Kings Island?
So my first year was 2022. So I was never
Okay.
there pre-COVID, but in the summer of 2019, I visited 92 times. So I had my fair share of experience with the park. No, no doubt. You can't say that. I did not. So there were definitely differences, and there were definitely differences that were were terrible, especially at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, from that 2019 summer to coming back when Orion was open that next year, and wow, we have to have half the seats on the rides just
Mm-hmm.
closed for social distancing reasons. That I get it, but like your capacity is shredded. I mean, it's half.
Mm-hmm.
And in line, you have to stay far away from people, and as you should, once again. But now the queue can only take so many people, and we need to do reservations for the parks. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of these things that I are in the past now, and we can say they were a part of
Yeah.
the COVID operation, but there's a lot of them that are not. There's a lot of them that the way Cedar Fair changed the way that they do their employee breaks, right? You used to be able to just clock out at your ride at Kings Island, and now you don't. You have to go to your break room and clock out there now. And that was originally a COVID change, and it is stuck operationally. And then of course, down here at Disney, they started doing these reservations, and that was originally a COVID thing, and that's stuck as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a thing I'm super glad has stuck. It's such a good way to manage expectations for your crowd, for staffing purposes, for stocking purposes of merchandise and food, and for crowd control purposes in just the sense of, hey, for some reason everyone's making reservations for Epcot on this day and no one for the other
Mm-hmm.
parks. Let's throw out a little free Uncrustables at Hollywood Studios and get some people over there to even things out. It's brilliant. Reservations work
Yeah.
brilliantly and are continuing to. So, yeah, it's tough to say how long we will be talking about policies in parks and say, well, this is a COVID thing,
Yeah.
but I'm sure it's not going away anytime soon.
Yeah, I remember that year because that's also when mobile ordering really started taking form. Not that it didn't exist before, but it was definitely not something that was widely used. And then more or less people had to use it. Uh, I remember going through that summer. Kings Island didn't open until July. The water park didn't open at all. And I remember going the first time and thinking, okay, I have to wear a mask on a roller coaster. How's that going to work? Because I think the first couple times I did ride Orion, it went flying off, and of course, who wants to be the person sitting behind gets smacked in the face by someone else's mask? But I
Uh,
remember going through that summer, and I don't remember when Disney opened down in Florida. I don't remember where at the summer. I don't think they opened in July. I think it was sometime in August. Of course, Disneyland didn't open until the next year. But I
yeah.
remember in COVID as a family, we were kind of weirded out for about 2 weeks, and then as kind of over it. But I remember thinking, okay, Disney opens up, we're going, because if we ever go down there again and the lines are this short, then something bad happened. So we figured, and so September that year, I think we might have been taking our girls out of school and went down, and we went to Disney, and sure enough, short lines, and yeah, it's very bizarre just to think of, very surreal to think that all happened, and just how everything, it's would have been hard to imagine such a thing before, and it's kind of hard to imagine that all happened being 5 years removed from it. But
Yeah.
yeah, you got to give the parks a lot of credit, because I remember thinking, people saying, "Well, when the parks reopen, are you going to go to them?" Well, of course. Some of those, the metal on the railings and the rides, they've never been washed in the history of time until COVID, and then they're getting washed down because they think that the whatever sanitation is going to get the virus off of it. I guarantee those things, any park that you go to, those things were not washed from the period of the time that they opened till when COVID hit, and they probably haven't been washed since. So that little
I
pocket of
you
time
know
was.
I'm with you, except on that last part. I do think the sanitation like standard is much higher now. Like I
Oh,
think
it's much higher.
it's not reverted back to pre-COVID. I mean, like, I can speak for the parks down here, the Disney Universals, they're gonna be really clean. They're gonna hold that to a high
Hmm.
standard no matter what. But like thinking about Kings Island, I think your cues and your restraints are being maintained better now than they ever have been.
Probably, but they're still probably petri dishes.
Yeah. Well, you're dealing
But
with a lot of people. You're not wrong.
yeah, you are. That's really no one's fault. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
But no, it's very amazing just to think of all that happened during that time, and to give any industry at all, the parks included, just of how they pivoted on a dime for an issue that no one saw coming. There's no playbook of how to do this, and to think about all the collaboration that had to go into making these park reservations. Not only do you need to make park reservations, but you need to have the software put together. You need to have an app put together so people can do this. All going to people that are making the app. They're not in an office. They're not collaborating, so they have to do all these things over this little invention we saw called Zoom for a while. Zoom still being out there, but and then trying to get it integrated to teams of people at whatever park you're talking about. Because I know Kings Island had the reservation system also, to get that integrated when people aren't in the office.
Hmm.
To think about how challenging of a time that was, and people making lemonade out of lemons, somehow things continue to work.
It's so cool. It's so cool to see too. Like we're not talking about the you know offices that are maintaining health insurance. We're not talking about the offices that are running universities or high schools or all these vitally important things. We're talking about theme parks. Like let's not lose sight of the fact that this is something we do for fun, and it's cool to see that as a species, I suppose, we care about fun enough to battle through all of that and make great experiences for each other. That's pretty awesome. Like just full stop.
And just how the human spirit, just somehow we got to make this thing work. Going
Yeah.
down, my wife is a teacher, and they went from 5 days a week in class, and you were in school during that time as well, up until the point where this happened. And I believe some schools that's right around spring break. So some schools went to school 5 days a week up till spring break, had a week off, and then they had to go virtual for the rest of the year. Now, if bureaucracies, good or bad, education in having a whatever school district has hundreds of employees, sometimes thousands, and to get everybody on the same page that, hey, we're 5 days a week up to this point, now we're going virtual, something they had no way of planning for, no experience in doing, and they pulled it off.
Yeah.
Now, any company that had to do that, that pulled stuff off, you could have given a 5-year goal to make things virtual and they wouldn't have hit it. But for some reason, the emergency power kicks in and people make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Spectacular. I will say, I think it hurt Daniel Defoe's Journal of the Plague Year, because this is a book by the author of Robinson Crusoe, and I knew a bunch of people who were like, oh, it's it's a Journal of the Plague Year, just like what we're in, and then they read it and they were like, yeah, this is exactly. I don't want to read this. This is this is what I
Yeah.
live with every day. Gardening and doing all these things I never thought I would do. Who cares? I have to live that. Let me give me something else.
Oh, what a great time to live through. April Fools.
April Fools. That would have been nice if we
Yeah.
started the then on April 1st. It had all been a prank, but alas, it was not.
Yeah. Yes, it was. It was not.
Yes.
All right. Well, we had a good episode today. Great talking with Loree. A lot of
Yeah.
information. And we had a lot of things we want to talk about, and it's sad to say we didn't get through all of it. We didn't come close to get through all of it. So, again, ways to contact Loree, it's loreebischoff.com. We'll have in the description some links to some of her resources. But other than that, it's been a great show.
Yes, it sure has. And I just am just so happy to be here doing this. So thanks again to all you guys for watching, making that possible. And make sure to let us know where you're watching from down in the comments below. I'm curious to see what that'll look like.
Yes.
Like, share, subscribe, comment, do all those things. And we'll see you right back here next week.